If you're about to start a digital transformation and you're thinking about hiring a system integrator or an implementer to come in to help you, it's probably too early and you should probably hold off on doing that. I'm going to talk about that here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients through their digital transformation journeys. And one of the dynamics we see commonly with organizations about to go through digital transformations is they decide on the software they want or the technology they want, and they just jump right in and start doing stuff. They hire the system implementer, the system integrator, the reseller, whoever's doing the technical implementation, and they just start designing and building stuff. And in theory, it sounds like you might be speeding things up and getting a head start or a jump start, but in actuality, what ends up happening is organizations that prematurely and too quickly hire their system integrator end up spending too much time and money on their implementations, and ultimately they don't go as well as if you held off on hiring your system integrator. So what I want to talk about today are the things that you should be doing before you even consider bringing your system integrator to the table and before you get them involved in your transformation. It may sound strange, but it's true. If you rush into your implementation and rush to hire your system implementer, you're going to spend more time and money on that implementation than if you hold off and make sure you have a clear plan and blueprint before you do so. Now, there's a few reasons for this, a few reasons why you're going to spend more time and money. First of all, you're inherently giving up control of your project when you prematurely bring your system integrator on board. They're going to come in, they've got the expertise, they know how these deployments should go, and you have your needs and your priorities that you've got to define. And if you're not prepared, if you're not up to speed, if you don't have a clear blueprint, a clear vision, a clear strategy that you have defined on your own, and you try bringing a system integrator in before you have that, they're going to steamroll you and they're going to implement the project the way they think the project should happen, not necessarily what's best for you and your organization. So that's one area where those sorts of disruptions and challenges along the way will actually increase your time and cost over time. The other part of what needs to be rationalized before you bring in your system integrator is really just rationalizing the resources that they're proposing for your project. What often ends up happening, and I'm always surprised by this, that more organizations don't challenge this, is a system integrator or an implementer will say, hey, you need to have, say, 20 full-time people on this project to make it successful. Most organizations blindly follow that and blindly assume that I need 20 people on this project if I want to be successful, and I need 20 people from the system integrator in order to get the job done. So what's important is for organizations to recognize that this is their project, you're in control, and you need to rationalize what resources you do or don't need on the project, and whether or not all of those resources necessarily need to come from your system integrator. So that's another consideration to keep in mind. And finally, the other reason why prematurely hiring a system integrator is going to cost you more time and money is because if you don't have a clear vision, a clear plan, a clear strategy for how you're going to deploy the transformation, it's not going to go well. And you're not going to be aligned as an organization, and that's going to create a lot of turmoil and problems later on in the transformation. And that's something I'm going to come back to here in a few minutes as well. The other reason why it's so important to make sure you hold off before bringing on your system integrator too soon is that you need to make sure you have strategic alignment and clarity before you bring your system integrator on board. Keep in mind that this is not a digital or a technical project. This is a business transformation. Even though you may call it a digital transformation and may be heavily influenced by the technology you're deploying, the other non-technical components of your transformation are ultimately what's going to make the project successful. And more than anything, a lack of alignment and a lack of clarity around the project is what delays and disrupts transformations. Doesn't matter how good your system integrator is, they're not going to be able to help you overcome that strategic misalignment, that lack of clarity, that lack of vision. So you want to make sure that you define your strategy up front. You have a clear vision and strategy for what you want this transformation to be, and you have a clear vision for how this transformation ties to your overall strategic goals and objectives. Most organizations don't do that, and they fail to recognize the importance of that strategic alignment prior to bringing your system integrator on board. The other aspect of strategic alignment that's so important is making sure that you have a clear vision for your business processes. There's a whole plethora of business process decisions that need to be made, major game-changing business processes that you as an organization need to define. And if you're trying to define these business processes while your system integrator is on the clock, billing you by the hour, that's going to get out of control real quickly. You're going to spend way too much time and money on your implementation. You're going to waste a lot of time and money on the transformation as well. Now, your system integrator or implementation partner is certainly going to help you define your detailed business process workflows and transactions within the technology, but the business processes you need to define now are at a higher level. Your more strategic business processes, your operating model, you're defining roles and responsibilities of your people going forward. Those are all things you need to decide now and determine now before you bring your system integrator on board. Again, if you bring your system integrator on before you've done that, you're going to spin your wheels, spend way too much time and money on the implementation when you don't need to. And then finally, the last component I'll talk about here today as it relates to strategic clarity and alignment is the whole aspect of project governance. Making sure you have a clear vision and framework and structure for how you're going to manage this overall program. That's something that you as an organization should manage, not to the system integrator. So your system integrator will have their technical governance for their work stream, but that's just one work stream of a massive transformation that involves a lot more than just what the system integrator is going to do. So those are just a few reasons why that whole clarity and strategic alignment is so important to a transformation, and reasons why you need to figure that stuff out before you bring the system integrator on board. In order for your project to be successful, you need to have a very clear program plan, a detailed plan that covers everything that goes into a successful digital transformation. And as I mentioned a moment ago, the technical side, the technical work stream that your system integrator handles is one small piece of an entire program, and you need to have a bigger program plan defined and a bigger program strategy for how you're going to manage all the moving parts of your transformation. For example, you'll have things like change management, data migration, integration between systems, solution architecture. All those things are examples of things that your system integrator isn't going to do for you, but they're critical to the success of your transformation. So you want to make sure that you have a program strategy, a program plan that defines all of those pieces and work streams prior to bringing the system integrator on board. Now, the system integrator certainly will provide inputs into that technical work stream, but you need a lot more definition than just that one work stream. The other reason why this thread is so important is because you'll have other technology needs besides what one system integrator can provide. So in addition to all the non-technical things I just mentioned, like organizational change management, data, architecture, integration, all that stuff, you also have just different systems, different technologies that need to be tied together. And so you want to have a clear program that defines how all those different technical pieces fit together as well. And then finally, your program plan should also look at all the different resources that are going to be required to make the transformation successful, not just from your system integrator, but your internal resources, all the other third-party resources that might be required to make that transformation successful. Those are all different pieces that you need to define upfront before you start bringing in the system integrator. These are just a few things to consider as you define your overall program plan. The other reason why you want to hold off on bringing on your system integrator is because your organization probably isn't ready to start the implementation. You may think you are. You may think that there's a sense of urgency, and they very well may be a sense of urgency and a recognized need for replacing your current technology. But when you peel back the onion and go a level deeper, you find that the organization's not ready in terms of organizational change management. You haven't defined what your change strategy is going to be. You haven't defined what you're going to do with roles and responsibilities and job descriptions going forward. You haven't identified what the change impacts are going to be and what that future state organization is going to look like. Those are all important prerequisites to make sure you have a clear understanding of what the transformation exactly entails from a people perspective. And it's important to recognize and remember that the technology piece of your project is always going to move faster than the people and process side of things. So bringing on your system integrator to get started on the technology piece does you absolutely no good, because it's the people and process piece that's going to take you the longest. So you need to get started on that stuff much sooner. And the people side of it typically takes even longer than the process side of it. So think of change management as something that's going to be on the critical path. The longer it takes you to do change management well is the longer it's going to take you to deploy the technology. So the sooner you can get started on that, the better. The other reason why change management is so important is because by doing an initial change assessment before you bring on your system integrator, you're going to get a better feel for how you should deploy the technology, what that overall roadmap and strategy should be based on the organization you are today and what you're trying to be in the future. So that organizational assessment is a critical input into defining what the overall program plan is. And again, that's something that only you can define, not your system integrator. Now, finally, the other component you want to look at as part of your overall transformation strategy before you bring on your system integrator is business value. How are you going to realize business value in this transformation? What's the benefits realization plan? What is the business case for how you're going to realize those benefits? All that quantitative piece of it that focuses on business value is something that needs to be driven by you, the implementing organization, not your system integrator, not your software vendor. So you want to make sure that you've taken the time to, first of all, create a business case, and not only create a business case defining high-level business benefits and objectives, but also defining more of a detailed benefits realization plan that outlines how those benefits will be achieved, how the different components of people, processes, and technologies will help enable those. And by the way, this whole focus on business value, the business case, and benefits realization is something that will help with project governance as well. So as you go to implement the solution, it's going to be a lot easier to make decisions because you have a clear vision of what business value you're trying to get. And every decision you make can be done in the context of whether or not we're getting the business value that we expect to get out of this transformation. So that whole focus on business value and really having a solid foundation and roadmap and starting point is something that's critical before you bring on your system integrator or your software vendor. So I hope you found this information useful. I also wanted to point you to some digital transformation downloads and resources that I've included links to below. Most notably, our annual digital transformation report is something that will provide some best practices in change management, in process improvement, in project management. It also includes software rankings and ratings of different enterprise technologies like ERP and CRM and HCM systems. So I encourage you to download this very helpful guide to a successful digital transformation. I've included a link to that and other resources below. So I hope you found this information useful. Hope you have a great day.